And then we get to the Second Amendment move that I talked about before. The Trump precedent of letting the ATF create rules as if we had no Second Amendment, as if the Constitution didn't exist. Because as far as Trump is concerned, it doesn't. He gets elected dictator. And he thinks he should be able to take back his dictatorship. Up to 40 million firearms could be banned overnight due to a new ATF brace rule. This is from Gun Owners of America. This is not the NRA, by the way, folks. Gun Owners of America have been far more spot on, and of course there's other ones as well. The National Association of Gun Rights. I've done some work for them in the past. But Gun Owners of America, I've interviewed Larry Pratt many, many times. His son is now running it. So, again, this is Trump versus the Constitution from President Trump, who was playing 4D chess at the time, that he said, we'll let the ATF write the rules. And we'll start with something, and this is how insidious it is, and how calculated this is. We'll start with something that nobody's going to fight over, except the Gun Owners of America did fight. NRA did not. The bump stock ban. So now we've got something new. The BATF is set to release its final rule on braced firearms later this month. In analyzing the proposed rule, which was released initially in June 2021, but there's a new wrinkle to it, a very dangerous new wrinkle to it. The ATF has intentionally designed its, quote, factoring criteria for rifled barreled weapons with accessories commonly referred to as stabilizing braces, unquote. That's the name of the rule. To effect a complete ban of every pistol-braced firearm currently on the market. Because you see, their proposed rule, even though they proposed it back in June of 2021, nearly a year and a half ago, they are, just a few months after Biden took office, taking advantage of Trump's precedent, giving them that kind of power. They put out a rule, but now for the last year, it only took them 5 months to put out their rule, but they've been working for 18 months to really put the devil in the details. And they're still amending the Constitution as we speak. Masquerading as a helpful rulemaking to assist gun owners. Yes, we're from the government, and we're here to help you. We're from the ATF, and we're here to help you comply to our rules. How about that? The firearms industry help them comply with the law. In reality, the proposed rule is designed with the obvious specific intent to largely outlaw the use of stabilizing braces on firearms. Why is this important? Well, this is something that has a lot more practical usage than the bump stocks. Bump stocks were kind of a throwaway thing, but it was a very important precedent. So now they go to something that's a little bit more significant and more widely spread, more widely used, to take it to the next step of legal precedent. And they're going to use it to ban guns and confiscate guns and to register guns and all the rest of this stuff. That's where they're going with this stuff. But they're going a step at a time. They're starting out with the most trivial, nonsense things, moving to other things that are a little bit more serious, but still not that serious. Thank you, Regan. Regan Perlett, thank you very much. I appreciate the tip on Rockfin. Thank you. So this new thing that they're putting out now, that they worked for a year and a half on, is called Worksheet 4999. Worksheet 4999. You're going to be hearing a lot about that, I think. It contains, at least in the gun rights movement, it contains 3 sections of analysis, each more restrictive than the last, designed to ensure that virtually no stabilizing brace is eligible for use on a non-rifle firearm, and thereafter ensuring that most firearms do not qualify to even use an allowed stabilizing brace. This is the precedent. Even if a firearm passes the checks listed in Worksheet 4999, ATF still reserves unto itself the unbridled discretion to override the results of the worksheet at any time and for any reason. You see, they create a system that has a lot of devilish details in it to deprive you of your God-given right recognized fundamentally by the Constitution. And then they reserve for themselves the rights to deny you even if their form doesn't do it, they can still override their rule and just dictate to you personally on a case-by-case basis. Do you understand how dangerous this is? And again, this is for a stabilizing brace for a pistol. Most people don't use it. Most of the people who are using are people who have some kind of a disability as a veteran or something like that. But it's still, even though millions of people are involved, this is still not a firearm. Are people going to understand the danger of this precedent and push back against this? The ATF in their proposed rulemaking claims that the number of these stabilizing braces in circulation is about 7 to 9 million, whereas the Congressional Research Service estimated that it is 4 times that. They estimated the actual number of braces in circulation is anywhere between 10 and 40 million. If this proposed rule becomes law, says Gun Owners of America, millions of gun owners could find themselves in possession of illegal, unregistered, short-barreled rifles or shotguns overnight. You understand what they're doing? They're going back to, one of the very first cases of gun prohibition was over sawed-off shotguns, the Miller case. What a piece of work that was. The guy was a convicted felon, and they passed a rule about the minimum length of barrels. They targeted him, and there was a lot involved in that targeting. But even beyond that, the suspicious genesis of the case, he died before his case was heard in the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court, instead of declaring it a moot issue, which it was at that point, because he was dead, they went ahead with it, and they decided the case anyway. The other thing that was amazing about it was that they said that a sawed-off shotgun was not a military weapon, therefore it was not protected by the Second Amendment. They said the Second Amendment is about a domestic militia, trained by the government, equipped by the government, but it was about a militia. Therefore, only military weapons should be allowed. Just the opposite of the lies that they're telling us now. That was a lie, but it was a lie that was polar opposite of the lies that they're telling us now. And so they said, because a sawed-off shotgun is not a military weapon, then we can ban it. Well, that was clearly not the case at the time they banned it. It had been used widely in trench warfare during World War I. What better weapon could you have in narrow trench warfare than a sawed-off shotgun to clear the way? And it had been used even in the Civil War by some cavalry charges. You're much better off when you hit that line of people if you've got, instead of a saber, if you've got a sawed-off shotgun in your hand. So it had been widely used in both wars. So they lied about that. They continued with the case where the plaintiff or where the defendant was dead. And so that's the basis now of these sawed-off shotgun laws. And so now they're going to have the bureaucracy develop a rule and say that if you add a brace to a pistol, you've now created a sawed-off shotgun or a short-barreled rifle that has a barrel that's too short. This is what's called infringement. Boiling the frogs gradually. One lie after the other. So I guess we'll just do the due process later. Is that right, Donald? ATF attempted once before to effectively ban pistol braces in 2020 during the Trump administration. Oh. And they pushed back. Republicans pushed back at that point. And it was a little bit too quick, right? So the Trump administration slows them down a little bit. Because it had been 2 years earlier, in 2018, that Trump had given the power to the ATF to do gun control regulation themselves with the bump stocks. That was in 2018. Then they said, okay, let's do it again. Oh, let's slow it down a little bit. Can't go too fast. People will catch on. Because of massive grassroots response to the rule change, the ATF abandoned their attempt and withdrew the rulemaking. Because now it's getting more substantive. Nobody really cared about the bump stock, but now when it's something that's more substantive, now they start to pay attention. So what is Gun Owners of America doing to combat this arbitrary and capricious regulation? They're the ones writing this article here, of course. We worked with 48 senators to demand that the ATF withdraw its proposed rule. ATF doesn't have to listen to senators, just like they don't have to listen to you, right? And they don't have to obey the Constitution. They have to be bothered with anybody. You can comment on it. Senators can comment on it. They don't have to pay any attention. And Congress said, gun owners of America, we're targeting the core of the issue, the National Firearms Act. The outdated and unconstitutional National Firearms Act allows ATF to regulate these sorts of items in the first place. Exactly right. It's where they started putting through things like the sawed-off shotgun. And so they have Senator Roger Marshall of Kansas and Congressman Andrew Clyde of Georgia have introduced the Short Act, which would remove short-barreled rifles and shotguns from the National Firearm Act. All the National Firearm Act is a violation of the Constitution. Any minor infringement of the right to keep and bear arms is a violation of the Second Amendment. All of these federal laws and rules are a violation of that. So anyway, they said, finally, if that doesn't take effect, we will take it to court. Let's talk about other efforts to protect us, because, the federal government now no longer cares about the Constitution, no longer cares about liberty. It does everything for one of two reasons. National security and continuity of government, or they tell the public, we have to take your liberty to keep you safe. Nobody wants to talk about liberty anymore. The common man. They created Common Core to dumb down our children. They created Common Pass to track and control us. Their Commons Project to make sure the commoners own nothing. And the communist future. They see the common man as simple, unsophisticated, ordinary. But each of us has worth and dignity, created in the image of God. That is what we have in common. That is what they want to take away. Their most powerful weapons are isolation, deception, intimidation. They desire to know everything about us while they hide everything from us. It's time to turn that around and expose what they want to hide. Please share the information and links you'll find at thedavidknightshow.com. Thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing. If you can't support us financially, please keep us in your prayers. thedavidknightshow.com.